Hello, Safe Harbor ladies. This is our 9th chapter of The Christian Secret of a Happy Life by Hannah Whitall Smith, and our theme is growth, and more specifically, growing in grace. And this class is going to feel easy as far as the postures go. The challenge is really going to be keeping our focus on the breath. And so it's going to be a slow, relaxing class, but it's going to take a lot of focus to let us move through the initiation of the breath rather than just forcing and diving into postures. You may want a block. We're going to be doing setu bandha, supported bridge, and when we have a block, then you don't have to use the muscles to support you so much, and it's more of a restorative. So you get one of those and set it off to the side. If you don't have a big block, then 2 stacked small blocks will also work. So we're going to start on the back. We are starting paying attention to the breath. So you can bring a hand to the heart and a hand to the belly. And we are not going to try and change the shape, the length, the size, the depth of the breath at all. We are going to try and allow it to be just what it is. And it's a little hard not to force it, because once we put our attention on things, we start wanting to change them. But this time, we're putting our attention there just to notice. We're going to be here a little while, so if you want to put the feet to the edges of the mat and let the knees fall in, that's great. Make sure there's an arch in the low back. Maybe shrug the shoulders under. And we're just going to appreciate the breath being what it is. Because as we think about grace and what grace is, we think about how we don't have to earn it. And the breath can definitely be a vehicle for understanding what that's like, because there's a way to breathe where we are in charge of this breath, and we think we have to make it look a certain way or sound a certain way or be full to a certain degree. But we could never go to sleep if we were in charge of our breath. And instead, the breath keeps going whether we're trying or not. And that is such a picture of grace. Whether we're focused on God or focused on our spiritual life or focused on our growth, God's love is still present, still carrying us, still holding us. And just like this feeling of being breathed, where we're not in charge of it, we're being loved and held. And so while you feel the breath for a little longer, I'm going to read you our quote from Hannah Whitall Smith. Put together all the tenderest love you know of, dear reader, the deepest you have ever felt, and the strongest that has ever been poured out upon you. And heap upon it all the love of all the loving human hearts in the world, and then multiply it by infinity, and you will perhaps begin to have some faint glimpse of what the love of God in Christ Jesus is. And this is grace. And to be planted in grace is to live in the very heart of this love, to be enveloped by it, to be steeped in it, to revel in it, to know nothing else but love, only and love always. To grow day by day in the knowledge of it and in faith in it, to entrust everything to its care, and to have no shadow of a doubt but that it will surely order all things well. To grow in grace is opposed to all self-dependence, to all self-effort, to all legality of every kind, It is to put our growing, as well as everything else, into the hands of the Lord and leave it with Him. It is to be so satisfied with our husbandman and with his skill and wisdom that not a question will cross our minds as to his modes of treatment or his plan of cultivation. It is to grow as the lilies grow, or as the babes grow, without a care and without anxiety. To grow by the power of an inward life principle that cannot help but grow. To grow because we live and therefore must grow. To grow because He who has planted us has planted a growing thing and has made us to grow. Surely, this is what our Lord meant when He said, "Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these." Lovely sentiments for today. And so, trying to keep our focus and concentration on the breath, just like the grace of God's love, and allowing the breath to move us the same way we allow God to grow us is the theme of our class. So we're going to bring the feet back in alignment with the hip points, and the knees are stacked so everything's in a straight line, hips, knees, ankles. And we're going to bring the hands onto the tops of the thighs and wait for the inhale. And when it comes, push the femur bones away. And there's a pause. And wait for the exhale to flatten the curve of the spine down towards the floor. And there's a pause. And then when the inhale comes, push the thighs away and you'll feel the back arch away from the floor. And then on the exhale, let the back flatten out. And you may notice that when you're not forcing the breath to be more full and more active, there's more waiting involved. Just like if we're really trying to keep step with the Spirit, we have to wait for grace to come. And so this concentrating on the breath is showing us a little bit of the discipline of allowing God to lead our lives. We have to wait through these pauses at the bottom of the exhale or the top of the inhale. And there's a lot more resting involved, even though there's a lot more concentration. And we're going to stretch out the arms, shoulder height, palms up. Move my paper off to the side. And we're going to let the knees fall over to the side. I'm going to start letting them fall to the right, and I think I'll do that on an inhale. So the inhale, the knees fall, and an exhale, they lift back up, because we need that little bit of core engagement. Inhale, they fall off to the left, and exhale back up to center. And this time when the knees fall off to the right, have the head turned to the left. And wait for the exhale to pick the knees up and straighten out the head. And then inhale left and look right. What I mean about this is more about concentration than the effort of the movement. emphasizing for me the pauses between the inhale and exhale. One more time each side. All right. Now we're going to do some rock and rolls, and those can put a strain on the back. So if you feel like that's going to be a strain for you, you can skip this part and do some more twisting because that can feel really good. But we'll just try and follow the pattern of the breath. So my inhale, my knees come back towards my head. Wait for that pause. And don't start to roll down until the inhale comes. And you might notice the breath is a little smaller when we're not forcing it. And so your rock and rolls may feel a little smaller. And that is okay. Yoga is more about self-awareness than striving. I'm going to turn, but you can stay at the top of your mat and we'll come into Malasana. So sink the tailbone down, the feet are angled out, palms together, elbows pushing into the inner thighs and the thighs squeezing back. And we'll just pause and sink into the breath here. Feel the natural expanse of the belly against the legs. I really notice that when I let the breath be what it is, the exhale feels more like a dropping down. I also notice how small the breath can feel when I'm not trying to force it at all. And it makes me feel like I'm sleeping and yet awake at the same time, which is kind of a peaceful way to be. Now, what I've noticed is when I come from a squat into standing, I can get super lightheaded, and I don't want that to happen to you. Nobody falling over, nobody fainting in yoga class. So we're going to straighten the legs but keep the head down. So we'll be in a forward fold. So we can bring the hands to the floor, straighten the legs, and keep the head dangling. And you may feel like for the amount of opening that your hamstrings are ready to have, that you need a generous bend in the knees. And that's okay. And we're going to start to try and rock in Uttanasana to the rhythm of the breath. So I'm swaying from side to side. It's like exhale to the side, inhale to center, exhale to the other side. Inhale back to center. It's a subtle movement, but sometimes when we go a little slower in yoga, it can feel like it's a little more strenuous. That we have to use more meticulous care with our muscles, that we can't just throw ourselves into something. And then try and rock from the heels to the front of the feet. You don't have to lift the heels off the floor, but just shift the weight. So it feels more like the hips become like a pendulum for the movement.
as I tip back. Inhaling as I come forward. That tuning in, waiting for grace to move us. Being still in the pauses. Feeling like the breath that animates us is like God's love animating us. That this isn't a life that we have to live alone, but we live in Him and through Him and with Him. And then come up onto the fingertips, flat back, and then bow again. Maybe straightening the legs a little more, but we'll lift on an inhale and wait for the exhale to bow. Lift up halfway, inhale, and exhale. And when we let the breath initiate the movement, feel how relaxing that is. But the mind has to stay focused. So the body's relaxed, mind is alert. But because the mind has something to focus on, you'll probably feel a lot less anxious. And then I'm going to inhale, and the next inhale, come up with a flat back. Wait for the exhale to bring the hands to the heart. And then I'm going to come down to the end of my mat. You probably already are here, but just check your alignment. Are your feet hip width apart? Are the outer edges of the feet parallel? It'll make your toes look a little pigeon-toed, but that's okay. And then the top of the thighs are back so that we have a nice arch in the low back. And then wait for the inhale to sweep up. And exhale begins that flat back descent down. Inhale, come up halfway. And exhale, bow. And inhale, sweep up again. That pause. And exhale, hands to the heart. We call these half sun salutes. Wait for the breath to initiate. Arms reaching up. And exhale, bow. Doesn't it feel like swimming? We are like fish swimming in an ocean of God's love. Just surrounded, outside, inside, by His love and care for us. One more time. And sweep it back. And exhale, hands to the heart. We're going to add on and make that a sun salute that's a little bit longer. We call it Surya Namaskar A in Sanskrit. So inhale up and exhale, bow. Inhale, come up halfway. And exhale, step the right foot back. Exhale the knee down. And then inhale, sweep the arms up. Wait for the exhale to start lowering the arms. Plant the hands so the wrist creases are parallel to the front of the mat and step back. And we're going to hang out here in plank for a second and sway with the breath. So I'm swaying side to side. I'm feeling more weight in my left hand and then over to my right hand. Woo, feel the effort in the core. And then on your next exhale, drop the knees
Drop the chest and chin, keeping the elbows in close, and then spring off the toes and come into a low cobra. So I'm not as high up as I can be. This is low cobra. This is higher up. We'll start down here and low and add that little swaying where we kind of look over the opposite shoulder at the pace of the breath. So my inhale is sweeping it over and my exhale is look. And then tuck the toes and come through table to exhale into down dog. I have a little bend in my knees so that I can get the hips even higher, and then sway with the breath in down dog. So I'm swaying a little to the right. Inhale it over and exhale left. So slow. Oftentimes in the spiritual life, we're really impatient. We want things to happen super fast. But the pace of grace is often very slow because it's organic growth. Think of a little seed under the ground. My son just planted some seeds. It'll be 3 to 4 weeks before they germinate. Slow growth. And back to center. Wait for an inhale to lift up on the toes. Exhale, bend the knees. Inhale, step the right foot up to the right thumb. Exhale, drop the back knee. And wait for the inhale to come up. Wait for the exhale to come down. I come onto the fingertips so you can pop the back knee and step in. This is inhale, and then exhale, bow. And inhale, sweep it up, and exhale, palms to the heart. Lord, help us grow in grace. And inhale, sweep it up again. And exhale, bow. Woo, those pauses between are so luxurious and long. Inhale, come up halfway. Exhale, bow again and step back with the left foot this time. Drop down. Exhale with the back knee and then inhale, sweep up. Exhale, plant the hands and step back to plank. And wait for the breath to rock and sway any amount in your plank. See what I mean about slow is sometimes harder? And exhale, drop the knees, chest, chin, spring off the toes, and on an inhale, maybe come up a little higher this time. We're still drawing the pubic bone up towards the navel to support the low back. And then we'll sway and look over the shoulder. So inhale, the nose traces a rainbow over to the other shoulder. Exhale. And really waiting for that inhale will help slow the whole thing down. Should be slowing down the pace of the thoughts. We're growing at that little sprout pace. And back to center. Tuck the toes and through hands and knees. Exhale and lift the hips up and sway to the pattern of the breath. The pace of grace. The pace of growth when God is in charge. You know, in our culture, because we, have machines that can work 24 hours a day, we kind of expect ourselves to work at that pace. And oftentimes, God's pace for us includes rest, includes downtime, includes refreshing. Just because something can be done doesn't mean it should be. And we will burn out in the spiritual life if we're always pushing, when we should be resting in Him. And back to center and wait for the inhale to come up on the toes. And bend the knees on an exhale. And inhale, step the left foot so the outer edge of the left foot is in line with the thumb. Exhale, drop the back knee. And inhale, sweep up. Wait for the exhale and time it so the end of the exhale, the fingertips plant on the floor. And step it forward. Inhale. Exhale, bow. And inhale, sweep up. And exhale. Palms to the heart. We're going to be doing some standing poses. So I'm going to step my right foot back, 3.5, 4 feet back, and get in front heel, mid-arch alignment. Looks like I need to take a little step back. This foot can be perpendicular to that front foot or a little angled in, just not angled back. We'll inhale, sweep the arms up shoulder height. Then exhale, reach forward, forward, forward as the back hip goes back. And then down to the ankle, shin, or even fingertips on the floor, depending. This is our inhale. And exhale, we're going to sweep the pinky side of the hand over the ear and the side of the head and reach out. And inhale, reach up. So that bottom edge of the chest is turning upward, the neck is long. And after this next exhale, when we come up for an inhale, we're going to flip the hand so that when we bring it behind us, the back of the hand is on the sacrum, or sliding around so that we can grab that bottom thigh. And then turning. And we're going to just stay in this bind for a few cycles of breath. How about 3? And if you're feeling a strain in your neck, you can look forward or look down. It's a long time, 3 breaths, isn't it? Unwind the bind. Inhale, reach up. And then like God is grabbing your hand and pulling you up, we'll come to the other side. So heel, mid-arch alignment again. Inhale the arms up, shoulder height. Don't jam or hyperextend in this knee. I'm not dropping it back. I'm keeping a little micro bend. Exhale, back hip kicks back. Reach, reach, reach till the hand naturally floats down and finds a home somewhere on the leg. Here's our inhale, then flip the palm so the pinky is facing down. And inhale back up. The heel of that top hand is in line with the heart. I usually have to remind my chin not to be so tucked into the chest. Really wait for the breath to initiate the arm coming up and elongating. So soothing. And then flip the palm so it's facing backwards and the back of the hand comes to the sacrum, and then the head of the shoulder can pull back, or the hand can reach over to the thigh, and that will naturally happen. And we'll just stay in the bind for a few breaths. 3 cycles, remember. Resting in his love. Resting in grace. Letting him grow us at his own pace. That rhymed. That's funny. And unwind, inhale up, and just like God's pulling us up. Woo. And we're going to parallel the feet. Bring the hands down under the shoulders. I'm gonna walk my hands a little more forward and just sink, lifting the kneecaps up. And for a moment, just breathe into the back. Feeling the back of the lungs rise and fall. Turning on that rest and digest if you weren't already feeling nice and slow and turned into that relaxing parasympathetic nervous system. And then coming back up, I like to put my hands on my hips and come up with a flat back. We're going to do a little sequence with warrior poses, and our feet are a little further apart for a warrior pose, so maybe 4.5, 5 feet now. And we'll inhale the arms up, shoulder height, and exhale here also. See if you can see those front toes. See if the core is even between both feet. And on the next inhale, back hand traces down the back leg, front arm lifts up, and wait for the exhale to come back to Virabhadrasana 3. And then inhale, coming to extend its side angle. So there's no weight on this front elbow. And inhale, come back up. Wait for the exhale. Inhale, reverse the warrior. Exhale, arms parallel to the floor. Inhale, pinky side of the hand is tracing a long line along the side of the face and up. And exhale. Now that should be an inhale, right? But we wait for the exhale here. And then natural inhale lifts us up. Exhale back. Inhale, extended side angle, pressing into that back heel. And inhale. And wait for the exhale. One more time. Reverse warrior, really lifting up the left side of the waist.
Exhale, relax it back down. Inhale, reach over. And it is exhale, come up. No wonder I keep saying that. But we inhale and exhale full round here. Ah. And then parallel the feet. Usually have to do a little adjustment to see that my toes are in one long line. We'll bring the hands down under the shoulders, and we're going to start to sway by bending, alternating knees. So maybe exhale left, inhale to center, exhale right. Wait for the inhale to center. Exhale, going as low as you need to get some sensation of stretch in the legs. It's hard to keep ourselves from pushing ahead to the next inhale. See if you can really focus and stay for the pause. And really wait to have the breath initiate. To have grace animate our actions. Grace animate our words. Grace animate our growth. And hands on the hips, come up flat back, and we'll do the same Virabhadrasana sequence on the other side. So bending into the right knee now, without letting that knee go past the ankle, and making sure that you can see a few toes. We'll inhale up to shoulder height, gaze out over that middle finger, wait for the exhale, and inhale, reach up to reverse warrior, and exhale back to Virabhadrasana 2, and inhale up and over, and exhale back. Wait for the inhale and the pause. You may notice that you feel like you're doing your movements more gently as you're waiting for the breath. And the usual forcing is not there. Wait for an inhale and an exhale, and then the next inhale, reach up. Wait for the inhale and the natural exhale. And turn the toes, parallel the feet, hands under the shoulders, and start to sway with the breath again. Notice at this pace you can really feel what you're feeling. And sometimes that's the hard part, isn't it? That when we're rushing, we don't have to feel what we're feeling. It's more of a blur. But like I heard my wrist crack. I feel how hard the outer edge of my left foot is working. I can feel some of that swelling in my left knee for some reason. It's feeling just a little inflamed. And see if you can bring some tenderness and grace to all that noticing, instead of trying to go fast and get away from it. Remind yourself you're moving in love. You're surrounded by His grace. Now I'm wondering how we're going to do this. I want to get us down to the floor. So maybe we'll heel toe the feet in a little bit and come onto the back. I'm going to keep my left on the floor and grab the right heel with my right hand and let it just hang. Bring my left hand onto the belly so I can be attentive to the pace of my breathing. This is becoming one of my new hand positions for half happy baby and full happy baby. Holding onto the heels feels like a little less work. So the arm is on the inside of the knee. So we're not blocking the knee, and then the knee can relax down towards the floor. And bring that right foot down to the floor, and then lift the sole of the left foot and grab onto the left heel and allow the left knee to reach down towards the floor as the right hand rests on the low belly. So you can feel the natural pace of the breath. You might notice how irregular the breath is when we're not trying. Comes on an as-needed basis. And sometimes the inhale is a little longer, or the pause is a little longer. It's amazing that we can have something so close to us and have so little familiarity with it. Just like the grace of God. It's held us our entire life, and yet we feel like we don't know it and can't trust it. And release the left foot to the floor. We're going to do knee over knee. So bring the right knee over the left knee, hug that in, and you can grab onto the outer edges of the feet and then lift the feet away from the hips to get a nice stretch in the outer hips. And so if you want a little less, then let the feet drop down, and if you want a little more, pull the feet away from each other, flexing the feet. But you can usually feel that top thigh pressing into the belly, so you get that feedback about the breath still. And the pace of grace. That slow, abiding, available, not too flashy grace of God. Which it feels humble, doesn't it? It's just quietly carrying us along, not demanding our attention for all that it does for us. And release the feet, recross the legs so the left is over the right. Grab onto the outer edges of the feet. Find an angle that feels sustainable. And then return to that easy, natural flow of breath.
grace and love that's available. Resting in the breath that's here without us trying. And unwind the legs, and we're going to keep the knees bent, reach between the knees, and this time you can grab the outer edges of the feet for a more traditional happy baby, or you can grab the heels if you liked having that variation. And then we'll start to rock at the pace of the breath. Take a moment of concentration to tune back into where am I going to move on the inhale? How am I going to move on the exhale? So I have my exhale is extend. My inhale more sweeps me through the middle. Yours might be the opposite, which might make a little more sense because as we pull back to the core, we have to use the abdominal muscles. And that exhale naturally engages them. But we're trying to learn how to flow with grace, to grow in grace. So we're not forcing. Letting the breath carry us. And release. What do I have us doing now? Oh, some rocking up and down. So that same exhale, come up. Inhale, rock back. Noticing the pauses. Maybe a couple more times. Making your rock and rolls as big as they'll naturally be to match the pace and size of the breath. And then we'll legs come wide for our Upavishta Konasana. Is that what it is? I can't remember right now. This focusing on the breath feels like it's cleared out my head. I'm not moving fast enough to remember all my words. But we're going to roll the thighs a little bit down and in so we can sit up tall, flexing the feet. The knees are pointed towards the ceiling, and then fold any amount forward just till you feel some opening and some stretch in the inner thighs. And then we'll just start to sway with the breath. This is feeling like my inhale takes me up to the left and my exhale's dropping me down to the right. So I meant for it to be a different shape than that, more like a smile. But it just feels like it naturally wants to go in that direction. Inhale, sway up. Exhale, sweep down. Inhale, sway up. Exhale, sweep down. The pace of grace. We're going to widen that a little bit. And so on an inhale, bring the left hand to left ankle and sweep the arm overhead. And maybe It feels better to have inhale straight up and then the exhale fold. Yeah, that feels more natural. So wait for the inhale to come up. And exhale, sweep over. Really noticing the pauses. I hope you're feeling extra relaxed. With this focus on the breath. Focus on God's grace and focusing on His love. Now we need our block, or stack of blocks as the case may be. I'm going to move my mat over a little bit. So we're going into supported bridge. We've done this before. And so the feet are as wide as the hips, and the knees are not flopping out or flopping in. They're staying in line with the hip points. And we're going to shrug the shoulders under. There's a nice arch already in the low back. And then we're going to press into the feet to lift the hips up, and either put the medium height under the sacrum or the lowest. This has been a slow class, so we don't want to over effort here and force ourselves into a degree of opening that we haven't really created. But the tailbone should be hanging down on the other side of the block. The block is under the sacrum. It's not under this arch in the back. So you can feel the full rainbow arch of the lumbar curve before you get down to the block. You can walk the shoulder blades under again, under the back, so they're squeezing towards the spine, and you can even bring the hands onto the belly. This passive back bend. Feeling the natural pace of the breath. Natural size of the breath. Just the right amount of grace for what we need in the moment. Try not to tuck the chin too much towards the chest. The chest lifts up towards the chin, but the chin is more pointing straight up toward the ceiling. Have an open throat. I love how supported bridge just gives us a nice arch in the back by just letting time and gravity do the work rather than our efforting. Just so like that slow growth. And when we cooperate with grace, we just get in the pace of that slow growth that God's love will carry us into. One more round of breath. We're going to press into the feet to lift the hips off the block. Remove the block and bring the sacrum straight down so you preserve that beautiful arch in the low back. We're going to bring the hands, palms down under the seat and extend the legs out long and together, pointing the toes. And then press the elbows into the floor to lift the chest up. And then tip the head back and bring the crown of the head down onto the floor with no weight on the head. So it just barely kisses the ground.
So that Setu Bandha gave us a nice arch in the low back, and this is opening and arching the upper back a little more. Pressing all the weight into the elbows and the forearms and the hands. Stay in fish pose for a few more cycles of breath. And when you come out, just bring the head down so we're on the back of the head. Release the hands out from under you and come into Shavasana for a moment. So heels are as wide as the mat. Feel the blood shift around. Everything settle into this new shape. Feels lovely. And it is not fun to go out of fish into something else. It's just nice to come into Shavasana and just relax, let the blood pressure equalize. And then we'll move into our cool down. So draw the knees in towards the chest one at a time and hug them in. See if you can notice the pace of the breath and bring that pace into your rocking. Super slow, huh? A slow growth of grace. And then hands on the knees and start to circle the knees in one direction with the breath. So inhale, arch. Exhale, draw the knees back in. And other direction. Notice I can't make as big as circles if I'm actually following the pace of my breath. And then toes stay together, knees go apart, and we'll start to circle the knees wide and together and in. See if the breath can keep leading the movement. So wait for the inhale to move. Wait for the exhale to move. And really see if you can pause in the pauses between another direction. And we've already done twists, and we've already done a pigeon variation, so we are ready for Shavasana. You can stretch out long, see how your back responds. You tuck the shoulder blades under, palms up, arms out 45 degrees from the body. Now we tuck the chin a little bit. And if your low back would like some relief, you can bring the soles of the feet to the edges of the mat and let the knees fall together. We listen to this song about God's grace. Deepen the breath. Wiggle the fingers and the toes. And begin to rock the head from side to side, making small movements. Inhale the arms up overhead till the thumbs touch on the floor behind you. Draw the legs together, pointing the toes, and come into a long stretch. You can hook the thumbs if you like and reach the right fingertips and right toes away from each other and squinch in the left side body. And reach the left fingertips and left toes away from each other and squinch in the right. Follow the breath for a couple more fishy wiggles. And draw the knees in towards the chest and roll to your right side and rest in the fetal position for a breath or two. Use the hands to press into the floor and come up into a comfortable seated position with the eyes closed. Inhale the arms up overhead, palms come together at the heart. I love these first words of Hannah Whitall Smith in this quote we read at the beginning. Put together all the tenderest love you know of, dear reader, the deepest you have ever felt, and the strongest that has ever been poured out upon you. And heap upon it all the love of all the loving human hearts in the world, and then multiply it by infinity, and you will begin, perhaps, to have some faint glimpses of what the love of God in Christ Jesus is. And Father, we thank you for your love. We thank you for giving us Jesus to be with us, our good shepherd, our lover of our souls, the one who is the vine and we are the branches, and help us to abide in his grace and grow in his grace. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. I hope you're feeling good and relaxed. See you in Bible study.